Hi, welcome to the Wild Learners channel. This is going to be episode 16, and I just want to say happy Earth Day to everybody. I just got done with my school day, and we did a lot with the Lorax and Earth Day, and it's sunny out today, and with all of that, I thought that maybe we would do a change of scenery. So I'm actually going to shoot this in my greenhouse today because I feel like I just don't want to be inside right now. I want to be outside enjoying the sunshine, so here we are. So thank you for being willing to change spaces with me. And obviously, since I'm in the greenhouse, I didn't bring all my equipment out here, so it's going to be a little bit different. It won't be quite as steady with the camera today, but my soul just needs this. So thank you so much for being willing to put up with that, I guess. Also, just thank you to all my followers. I know that I've been missing for a while. We went a couple weeks without posting any videos, and I just really needed that. Something that I think that I want to be transparent and honest about is running your own business is a lot of work. Teaching is a lot of work, and when you put those two things together like I do with a micro school, sometimes it just gets to the point where you just don't have any downtime. And I was finding that with myself that I wasn't really enjoying anything that was outside of teaching or just my normal like wife and mother duties, and I just really needed to create some space for myself. And I think that I really need to do that just to keep being a good teacher and mom and wife, and to really make sure that I wasn't getting burned out with this channel either. So just a word of the wise, since we're going to be talking about micro schools today, make sure that you create that space for you. If you need it, take it. This has just been a really busy season because we're finishing up the school year. And this is also the time of the year, obviously, that we are getting ready for our ginormous plant sale that we also do, and getting ready for gardening. I do tutor in the summer, so I've been running a whole bunch of campaigns to get students for tutoring. I'm also working to get enrollment to fill a couple spots for next year. So I just feel really overwhelmed. It's a really busy time of the year, but I feel like I got a lot of work done. I got a lot of things to a point where I feel like they're a lot more manageable. So, and I felt like this was a perfect segue into how to run a micro school. So if you are interested in learning about micro schools, what a micro school is, how to run one, get some more information about how my micro school is run and kind of like what I do, then this is the episode for you. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. So we're going to talk about what is a micro school. Well, micro schools, if you haven't noticed, are gaining steam along with homeschooling, right? So micro schools are also known as learning pods. They're kind of like the updated version of the one-room schoolhouse. Usually micro schools are less than 15 students. My school, I only do 10, but you can do as many as you feel like you can handle and still get the quality that you're looking for. My school, along with many other micro schools, have varying ages, so that goes along with that one-room schoolhouse. So I do kindergarten through 6th grade in the same class, and but it's very manageable because I only have 10 students, right? The schedule and the curriculum is tailored to fit the needs of those students. And micro schools can be public schools, they could be registered private schools, or they can just be kind of a co-op kind of thing. There's a lot of different ways that you can run a micro school. They can even be charter schools as well. So my school is it's not public, it's not private, it's more of a homeschool co-op. And what I mean by that is, so to get a public school, you have to be federally funded and be a part of a district around you. To be a private school, you can be either accredited or unaccredited. To be accredited, that means there's extra steps that you have to take with the state. Now, I personally don't feel like those steps really give any extra validation to what I'm doing. And it's a lot of extra steps, and there's a lot of extra codes and stuff that you have to follow that are going to make it more expensive as well to get started. But some parents do look for that accreditation. For me, the accreditation was just a title. It doesn't change my skill level or the type of work that we're doing in our class. so I did not go for that. A co-op is where you're working with parents, and so mine is more of a homeschool co-op situation. For example, like if I get sick, I don't have built-in sick days, so the parent is responsible for that day. If I have to call them sick, or if their student is sick, they're still responsible for that being a learning day, because in the state of Indiana we have to have 180 days. So I kind of partner with the parents on this, as well as like every day we just have conversations with the parent. It's a very close-knit community, my school is, and so it's a lot of partnership, and so that's why I consider myself a co-op. But you can kind of look on Google and kind of just see like what you feel comfortable with your school, and like how you would want to define it, is really what it comes down to. So my micro school, again, is just kind of a blend of traditional school, because it has, like, I have a formal education component, but it also has the farm and nature integration because of my background. Not all micro schools have to have the formal education. So we do have another school in Columbia City. If you've watched my videos, you've seen me interview them. So Giving Gardens of Indiana would be like an example of a micro school. Now they don't do traditional like formal learning, but all of their curriculum is still that. It's curriculum. It's still something that they actually are intentionally doing, and it's all nature based. So that's something that you can also decide, like, are you going to offer traditional classes like reading, math, writing, social studies, science, and things like that? Or are you going to focus on like music or math or nature-based learning or something like that? Or are you going to do a combination of all those things? So that's kind of what I do. So I came from public school, so I have my licensing and I have lots of experience with teaching, but I also am an environmentalist, and I've started my master's in environmental education, and I've always just really loved nature. So for me, it was a great way to really do project-based and hands-on learning through science, and even just integrating, you know, storytelling and writing and math and reading into nature. For me, was really simple because I've had a lot of practice doing that. I also am very interested in learning other languages, so I incorporate that into my school because it's something that interests me, and I think it's a good skill for students. So the first 2 years I had this school, we did American Sign Language, and now we've been doing Spanish. We'll probably do Spanish for another year or two, and then we'll switch back to American Sign Language as some of those other students are aging out, and my other students are still in that maybe haven't had American Sign Language yet. We'll go back to that. So that's a little bit about how you can think about micro schools, how you can define them, things to think about when you're either choosing a micro school for your child or whether you're getting ready to start one. I think the other really important thing to think about when you're thinking about what type of micro school you want, you need to think about the location. So for me, being able to do the nature and farm integration was easy because we do it here at my home. So my micro school is in my home. We have an indoor classroom where we do a lot of our formal learning. And then we do have a base camp where I try to, like, if we're doing the hard play so that we're not damaging wildlife and stuff like that, we have an actual base camp where we have like a tent and chairs and tables and holes from being dug and things like that. But then we also have spaces like the garden and the woods where we do have rules like leave no trace and things like that. Or, you know, there's certain areas in the garden where they have their own individual plants, and like it's a little bit more of a free-for-all, whereas they know like the other half of the garden is the market garden. So if you're gonna be in that area helping me, we have to be a little bit more serious and intentional. So knowing like what you want to do and making sure that space fits what you're wanting to do is really important. Some other areas that you could think about if you don't have a space that you can use that you already have. I know a lot of community libraries have community rooms that you can use. I actually just talked to somebody who is getting ready to start a micro school, and they got permission from their town to use the park because they don't really need a building. They're only meeting like 1 or 2 days a week, and it's only for a couple hours, and so they're just going to meet at the park and do it at the park. You can also use community centers. A lot of communities have like Boy Scout buildings or churches or things like that that you could like rent and use a space and meet with parents and children there. So those are some things to think about. I think it's really important if you are picking your space to make sure that, like, one, it's going to fit your needs. Two, that there's plenty of space. That's another reason why I only do 10 students, is because I feel like the room that we converted into my classroom really only comfortably sits, I mean, I'd say probably max of 15. But as some of these students get older, I want to make sure that as their bodies get bigger, that they're still comfortable and feel like they have personal space. So that's another reason why I went with 10. I'm also just a big believer in one-on-one. I wanted this to really be a homeschool feel where they are getting a ton of individualized attention. So I went with 10 as well, because I feel like that is my personal area that I just feel comfortable with, and feel like at the end of the day, I can be happy with the amount of attention I gave each student. I will say one area that's been kind of difficult with doing it in my home, there's this Montessori school not too far from me that is a beautiful, amazing property, okay? It's a great Montessori school, but they're very home-based, or it looks very home-based, and they have a lot of funding, so they have like amazing buildings. They have amazing gardens. We live where our school is. We also farm where our school is. So like animals, if you have animals, you know that like poop happens, right? Like it's just dirty sometimes. And like, I don't have any extra staff that is just devoted to, maintaining buildings or anything like that. Like, that's just up to me and my husband. And so I think sometimes parents will have this idea of it being like a agro-tourism type place where it's like this beautiful property with these like perfectly maintained gardens and barns and like yards and house and things like that. But I think it's really good for you to be transparent and be like, nope, this is our home, this is like our working farm. As a teacher, I'm not a millionaire, so our house isn't grandiose or anything. It's very common. Our classroom, I try to keep everything really nice. I'm very proud of what we have. I'm very proud of what my husband and I have accomplished, but I'm definitely not competing with other public or private schools, because I just don't have that funding. Everything that we're doing is out of pocket. It's coming from the tuition that I'm making. So I think it's really important to be transparent about that. Now, with that said, a problem I have ran into is I'll have like 50 people interested in maybe one opening that I have. Well, I can't do 50 tours because I would just never see my family. I would just never have time ever again. So what I do is I try to be very transparent about posting pictures on Facebook and things like that show our spaces. And then I do an open house right before school starts. So like in June, I'll have an open house for new families to come and look at the space, make sure that, this is what they were thinking it was going to be, and make sure they're happy with it. And that's the only open house I do. And then I'll do a back to school night the night before school. It's really important that you do that, because it can get really out of hand sometimes with trying to meet the needs of like several different families that have several different needs, and then making sure that you are being true to yourself and like your family as well. So that's just kind of a tip right there. So earlier I was talking about how microschools can either be accredited or unaccredited. And like I said, accreditation just means you went through your local state to meet their requirements. And if you do get accreditation, so like I said, I didn't do the accreditation. I didn't feel like it was worth it, because I have my licensing as a teacher. I have all this experience. I have all these extra endorsements and my masters and things like that. And I didn't feel like getting the state accreditation really did anything extra for the quality of my program. Now, with that said, if you are somebody who wants to accept like school vouchers or any other kind of federal or state funding for education, I know in Indiana, I'm not sure about other states, you will have to have that accreditation. So if that's something that you're looking at doing, I would go ahead and get that accreditation. Now in Indiana, there is something called ESA funds, and I am still looking into this myself. So this is still kind of new to me and I'm researching it. But right now, if a child has had an IEP, has been through that testing process, they can use ESA funds for like tutoring and other special services like speech language pathology and things like that. So you could use those funds even without having accreditation. So that's something that I'm looking into and kind of doing some more research on, and that's just kind of a heads up for you if you are thinking about those things as well. So I kind of already talked about my school a little bit and how my school kind of fits in with that. I'll just kind of keep doing that as we go through some of these other things. But we're going to kind of get into the benefits of a micro school, and why I decided to do a micro school. So as I said, I taught in public school, and I am definitely not against public schools. I think that there is a huge need for public schools. I think public education is really important. I think that what I get to do is amazing. I think that it's really great for families that can do it, but I also understand that I'm a niche, right? I understand that a lot of families, even though I try to keep my tuition under what all the other private schools around me are charging, it's still a lot of money. And it's a lot of money compared to free and public education, right? And right now, inflation's crazy. Our family's feeling it. I know a lot of other families are feeling it. So I think that we need these public schools for families that don't have other options. They still need a really good education. Those kids still deserve everything that I could provide as well, right? Like they still deserve a really high quality education. I think it's also really important because I do have my mild to moderate intervention, but I am not equipped to take care of certain special needs. I would really need an aid or even some different resources to be able to take care of specific kids. And public schools are equipped to do that. And I think that it's really important for those families to make sure that not only is their child still getting a high quality education, but depending on their needs, whether, they're mental or physical or behavioral or whatever, that their child is still in a really safe space and getting the services that they specifically need. So I just want to say that right from the bat that I am not against public schools. I think we need public schools. I do believe public schools need some reform. I think we've all can come to that conclusion from the data. I mean, I've been in public schools. I've talked about how it really comes at a government level. Administrators and teachers want what's best for your kids overall. So hopefully that can all get itself sorted out and hopefully some changes coming. So I wanted to preface with that, but I do think there are a lot of benefits to microschooling, and a lot of those benefits are the same as if you were homeschooling your kids at home. So I think that microschools are important because I think that parent choice is important. As a parent, because of the background I have, I felt like this was a better option for my family than going to our public school. As I said before, I understand that my background makes it easier for me to do that, and not everybody has an education background. Not everybody can just start a school and homeschool their kids and stay home and things like that. But I think that having those options are really important because I think there are a lot of kids that don't do well in traditional learning environments, and being able for those families to also have options is really important. I think that having different approaches to learning is also really important. So, I'm still working on reading and math, but because I limit my class to 10, I don't have to spend, I don't have to have a 90-minute reading block. We can do that in 30 minutes and still get just as much, if not more, done in that time, and we can spend the extra time that we have outside doing nature-based immersion programs. We can do farm skills like taking care of the animals, collecting eggs, planting a garden, talking about natives, foraging in the woods, things like that, which I think are important skills and it's something that I wanted to incorporate. I also like this method because with, you know, I came from a public school. I had 32 kindergartners my last year that I was there. That was a lot. And I don't think that I was the best teacher that year. I'll be honest. I did what I had to, and I tried my hardest with what I had. But it wasn't the best learning environment for them, and it was not the best environment for me as a teacher. And I really believe that kids need hands-on, play-based, project-based type learning methods, and it's so much easier to do that with a class of 10 than it was with a class of 32. And so micro schools provide those opportunities where it's just not feasible in public schools. My biggest thing that I love about my micro school is the collaboration that I have, not just with my students or what the students have with each other, but also the collaboration I have with my parents. We have really strong relationships here between me and the parents, between me and the students, and between the students and each other. And I love that. And I think the multi-age classroom really enhances that with the students. And it adds a really cool dynamic collaboration piece because you have preschoolers talking to, you know, 4th and 5th graders, and 4th and 5th graders talking with preschoolers. So not only on a, you know, intellectual level are we looking at like higher vocabulary development and things like that, but we're looking at even like conceptually the things that they're thinking about, the way they're thinking about it, and just being introduced to different types of content or thoughts and ideas. We have some really great collaboration and I love it. And because we're small, we get to build stronger relationships with each other. I will say sometimes those relationships can like if there's a disagreement, it can look more like a sibling type disagreement than maybe you would see in a classroom because we are very close to each other. But in a lot of ways, I think that's really good because then they get to practice de-escalation and collaboration and how to handle disagreements with other people in a safer environment. Because I only have 10 students, there's hardly ever a time that I don't know or hear or see what's going on. And so I don't always jump in right away. Sometimes I don't even jump in, but I'm always listening. I'm able to kind of oversee what's going on. Something else that I like about my micro school is I don't use curriculum. I hate curriculum. I think the curriculum is stupid expensive, and it caters to like one type of learner. And after years and years and years of being forced to use curriculum that like didn't work, and then like spending hours on teachers pays teachers to like come up with supplemental material for my students who were not at that level, I decided that instead of like doing both, I would just take the hours that I would have spent trying to come up with supplemental material and just do personalized lesson plans. So all 10 of my students have their own individual lesson plans. They're working where they are. And I love it because all of my students are either at grade level or way above. So they're at grade level in the areas that maybe is not their favorite. So like I'm thinking specifically of a 2nd grader I have. He has dyslexia. And so he started out his kindergarten year not well. So he did his 2nd year of kindergarten, and this was in public school. This is actually someone who started out in public school, had a 2nd year of kindergarten, and still after their 2nd year of kindergarten was still struggling with like knowing their letters and letter sounds. And so we started mid-year of his 2nd year of kindergarten, and he is reading at grade level now. So if you don't work with kids that have severe dyslexia, you probably don't understand like how absolutely incredible that is. So I'm very, very proud of that. But what's even more incredible is because we are working in such a small class, we get one-on-one, he sees what the other students are doing. He's actually working on 4th and 5th grade math skills, which I love because it actually just helps build his confidence up, because I think that he knows he struggles with reading a little bit. So being able to excel in this other area, I think, is really gratifying for him, and I love it. I love that learning is still fun. He looks forward to new content. He's not just constantly doing review or helping somebody else. He gets to focus on like where he's at, and that's been really cool to see. And I get to do that with all my students. So I have a 4th grader who she's reading at like a 7th grade level. She can write at a 7th grade level. Like, she is great. Like, and we can do that. I can get her resources and get her material that is where she's at. But then at math, she is solidly at a 4th grade level, and that is okay. And so we work on her where she's at, and it's great because it's just challenging enough that it stays fun and interesting, but it's not so challenging that they feel defeated and start losing their self-confidence. But then they also have these other areas of interest where they excel, and they can really like showcase what they're good at, and I think that that's really important. Again, we talked about the enhanced social and emotional development through interacting with peers of different ages. I think that another thing that I like about my micro school is that we have a lot of hands-on learning. I was one of those students that when I was in 1st grade, I had a teacher that really thought I needed to be medicated because I was just too active. And the fact was, I was just bored. And I needed to move. I'm still an adult that can't sit, like, I can barely sit through a whole movie. I just like to be busy, and it's not that I can't focus, I just would rather be doing other things. I have things that I'm interested in, or I see other things as being more productive than others, and that's just who I am. And I think that the hands-on learning really showcases my learning style. I don't think it showcases everybody. I have some students here even that love worksheets. Like, they want worksheets. They like the paper. They like to like see everything. And then I have students who like hate the paper. They would rather do everything through play-based type learning. And I can really make their lessons fit their personality so that they are really getting to do it at their best. Now, I'm not saying that if they hate worksheets, they never have to do a worksheet, right? I like to use worksheets, one, to show parents where they're at, and for me, for data records and stuff like that. So I mean, like, we still do them once in a while with those students even. But for the most part, I try to make sure I'm designing the curriculum in the format that best fits their personalities, because some people might say that's unrealistic, but I don't think it is. I think that as an adult, you're going to likely, hopefully, get into a field that fits your style, right? Like, I went into teaching because I knew I couldn't be a secretary. I could not sit all day. I could not stare at a computer all day. That is not something I would have been good at. I would have been miserable at, so I got into teaching. And I think that as kids, we need to like help them understand like what their learning styles are and like what they prefer, so that when they do go to get into a field and find a job, they can find a job that they're going to excel in and be happy in, because it fits their personality as well. And they're going to be better workers for that. So I think that it is very realistic, honestly. So one benefit I also see, and I just want to preface this again, that this is my own personal opinion, is the option to either be accredited or not be accredited. And this goes along with the standardized testing. So if you have watched my channel, you know I'm very against standardized testing. I don't think there's such a thing as a standard child. Now, that's not to say that I don't keep records or that I don't do progress reports. I do all those things. Actually, I do my progress reports bi-monthly. I am a huge data collector. A parent could come to me any day and just be like, hey, what's my child's guided reading level? What's my child's fluency rate? And I have all that information, because I think that's really important. I want to make sure that they are showing growth. If we ever get to a point where they're not showing growth, we need to intervene as quickly as we can and figure out why. So, but I am very much against standardized testing. I think that I can know where my students are without standardized testing, and without standardized testing, they don't have to stress out. They don't have to have a sense of failure if they come to a question that they don't know and I can't help them. I think that's ridiculous. In what world do you not have access to Google or somebody that would have the answer? Never. Like, we live in a day and age where, like, if I don't know how to do something, I can get on Google and figure it out. That would be really stressful, and I would be a hot mess if I had a question that I could not answer and I had nowhere to go for it. I just had to sit there and know that I just didn't know the answer and I was going to get it wrong, and there was nothing I could do about it, right? So like I said, I still do assessments, I still collect data, but I do it in a way that builds the student up and promotes their confidence in learning, because I want them to develop into lifelong learners. And I want them to see that, like, yeah, if you don't know the answer, there are ways that we can figure that out together, or I can offer you tools for you to figure it out on yourself. There's never a time where you're just stuck and isolated. Like, that's not how human beings work. So that's just my little opinion and caveat, I guess. So we've talked a lot. We've talked a lot about what microschool is, kind of like the theology around microschools. We've talked a little bit about how my microschool runs and just kind of what my pedagogy is around my school. So if you've gotten this far and you're still interested, it means you probably want to start your own microschool. And I want to talk about that a lot too, because starting a microschool can seem really daunting and scary, and it is. And it's something that you really need to be serious about and think about, and really put a lot of plans on paper. Plans on paper is so important. So we're going to get into this. The first thing you need to do when you're getting ready to start a microschool is decide and list your purpose and goals. So I went ahead and did a full out business plan, and I'm not saying you need to do a business plan. That's just the kind of person I am. I wanted a full out, I have a 30-page business plan, and I update it annually, kind of, as best as I can. But for me, it's really good because I need to know what my learning method is going to be, and that kind of changes from year to year with the different students that are coming in or leaving, and what your focus is going to be. So are you going to focus on, like I said, art, music, STEM, nature? You know, are you going to have like a niche that kind of separates you maybe from other public schools or co-ops in your area? So have a plan, have it on paper, think about it critically. Number 2, curriculum. Now, I know I said that I hate curriculum, but that doesn't mean you have to hate curriculum. So maybe there's a great already made curriculum that you want to use, or you're going to use like an online learning service with your students. That's fine. Maybe you're going to be like me and you're going to create your own curriculum so it can be individualized. So if you're going to do that, you definitely need to make the Department of Education's website for your state your best friend, so you can kind of align to their standards and kind of know what's age appropriate for that grade, and just kind of use that as a starting block, okay? Number 3 is find a space. So like I said, check your state and county for laws around homeschooling or private schools first, because it's not even across the board. I live in Indiana. Indiana is wonderful for school choice, period. So it makes it a lot easier. There are a lot of states that are more restrictive when it comes to homeschooling, or when it comes to doing co-ops, or when it comes to like microschools and stuff like that. So you need to be sure you check your state regulations first. After you do that, then you need to check your county's building codes, or your county just I think it's pretty much going to fall on the building codes on like how many students you can have in a space. If you're using like a public building, you're going to need to make sure that like the restrooms are up to code. You're going to need to make sure, if you're in an outdoor space, that your outside toilet meets the county codes for disposing of bodily waste and things like that. So those are things that you definitely need to research. Number 4 is you need to decide if you want to hire or train an additional teacher, or maybe you're just going to utilize like parent volunteers. So that's going to come with like looking at your tuition, like how much are you charging for tuition, because you want to make sure if you're going to hire somebody that you're going to be able to pay them enough to retain them. So you're not going to want to train a new aide every year, or have somebody leave mid-year because they went and found a better paying opportunity, and then you're just stuck during the school year not having an aide when you had planned on having an aide. So that's something that you really need to think about and research, and make sure that when you're hiring, you find somebody who works very well with you, whose ideology really aligns to yours, and that you guys are on the same path. Number 5, I say write a business plan. And in that business plan, you need to decide what your hours are going to be. What are your operating hours? Are you going to operate 5 days a week? Are you going to do 3 days a week? Are you going to do 2 days a week? Are you going to do full day? Are you going to do half day? Are you going to, what's your tuition going to look like? Are you going to are you going to charge tuition weekly, monthly? Are you going to do it annually? I think that also having a really solid parent handbook is essential. So have in your parent handbook what you do for weather, what you do for illness. I'm trying to think of some of the things that are in mine. Behavior plans. Like if you have a student who's struggling with certain behaviors, how are you going to address that? What's it look like after repeated offenses? What's it look like if parents aren't paying the tuition? What's it look like if a lot of different things happen? Have that outlined. One, it's good for parents to know beforehand, like what your school's looking like, what your expectations are, and then also, honestly, just to have you protected in case something does go wrong. So, have the parent handbook. There's a page at the back of my handbook that parents have to sign saying that they read it, that they're agreeing to it. That way, if something does go wrong or, something seems to be misunderstood, I can point back and be like, well, it's in this handbook, you agreed to it, this is what our expectations are. 6, probably the scariest part of owning your own business is taxes. And honestly, that's what's freaked me out the most when I started my school, is the whole tax part of it. And to be honest, now that I am so many years in, taxes are like the easiest part of it. So to get your taxes, and even just to start your business, you have to decide how you're going to organize your business. So my school falls under an LLC, which is a limited liability corporation. You can do S Corp, or there's several different options. You'll just have to research and figure out which one fits best for you. You could even do nonprofit. If you do nonprofit, then you need to have a board, and there's a lot of different expectations for nonprofit. So you need to look at those different things and decide how you're going to organize. After you're done figuring out how you're going to organize, then you're going to go through your state and file your article of organization, and that's to get your business name, to get the okay from the state saying that yes, your business is approved and things like that. So after you get that through your state, then you're going to go onto the irs.gov website and you're going to apply for your EIN, and that's what you're going to use to pay your taxes. It's actually really easy. I just go on the irs.gov website. I pay mine quarterly, and I pay my estimated taxes quarterly. So I just get on there, I say that I'm going to pay my estimated taxes, I put in the information it asks for, and then I pay them. Your taxes, that's something that I do by myself, but you can pay somebody from like H&R Block, or just even like a private person to do for you. Just make sure you're tracking all of your deductions and your income and things like that. And that's all stuff that you can find resources for online, like what counts as a deduction, how to categorize things, whether it's materials and supplies, whether it's advertising, because everything is categorized different. It does take some getting used to, but once you've done it, it gets so much easier, and it's really not as scary as it sounds. Number 7 is getting your space ready. So make sure you have all of the materials you need, the resources you need. So some of the things that I always try to make sure I go over every year, just to make sure they're all updated and ready to go, is my tuition payment agreement, my photo releases, because I do post photos on Facebook, my accident responsibility release. I go through my handbook and just make sure that last page is ready to go for parents to sign. And again, just making sure I have enough copier paper, markers, pencils, making sure the outdoor space doesn't need like buildings that need fixed or trees that need cut because they're unsafe or things like that. Make sure your space is ready to go. Like I said, for number 8, have a plan for behavior expectations and have that in your parent handbook. That's something you need to think about now. You don't want to think about it after it's already happened. You want to think about it now so you have a plan when it does happen. You need to also, same goes for like late payments, calling and texting outside your operating hours, they lost or items that are left here, and just interventions, like if a student needs like a behavioral intervention or a reading intervention, have all those things listed in your handbook so parents know beforehand what to expect or how you're going to handle those situations as they arise, so that you already know, so you're not trying to think of it on the fly. And then number 9, you need to decide if you're going to go through the right channels to receive vouchers for your state, and know what those requirements are going to be. So I am just going to share my opinion on this, and this is, like I said, just my opinion. You can have a completely different opinion. I did work in public schools. I see the need for public schools. I believe in public schools, and I understand financial stress for families and not being able to afford alternative education options. Because of that, I personally do not want to take funds away from schools that are already underfunded, and take money away from teachers that are already underpaid. So I personally will just never do that. I will never take state funds, and I will say that has lost me a lot of students. There are a lot of families that want to use those vouchers to send their kid here, and I don't take the vouchers. And so I could have a lot more students. I could probably hire several more teachers if I was willing to do that, but I'm not. And that's okay. I think that the great thing about micro schools is that everybody's micro school looks different. So it gives parents lots of different options, so they can find somebody who maybe does take vouchers, or maybe they're not interested in nature-based learning. They want to do more music or art-based learning, and they can find somebody that does those things. So don't feel like you need to bend or recreate who you are or your belief system to try to meet the needs of everybody, because when you can't meet the needs of everybody. Stick true to yourself and like what you want to do with your school and your business and who you are as a person, and it will work out perfect. I know there's a lot more that you could think about. So if there's something that you have a question about or that I didn't address, just drop a comment below in this video, and I'll either answer you if it's something I can answer really quickly, or maybe I'll do like a part 2 to this video where I'm answering a whole bunch of questions. So I've kind of talked a little bit on and off about things that I've learned along the way of starting my own business and running my own school, but I had a few things that I wanted to be specific to address. This was a hard lesson. This is one I learned this year, and it's that not everyone's going to be a good fit, and that's okay. So I have dealt with some behavior issues that I've tried to go through my process to try to alleviate. I've tried to like make special accommodations for the students. So this is all outlined in my parent handbook of like what I will do. It continued to be a hazard for some of the other students in the school, and it ended up getting to the point where other parents were getting upset. I was stressed out every day trying to like think about how I was going to do all my different transitions or projects in a way that was going to keep these students safe, but also not single out this other student. And it just got to be too much. So I ended up dismissing them, and it was not pretty, and it was hurt all the way around, right? Like it was just, and it sucks. I'm just gonna be honest, it sucks. It sucks for everybody. But it was something that I knew I needed to do for myself, for my students, for my school. And at the time it felt like it was very personal against me, but I understand now that it wasn't. It just was not a good fit for them. It wasn't a good fit for me. And that is okay, because there are other options out there where they're going to thrive and do amazing, and other people can meet different situations better than I can. I'm not going to sit here and be like I am an expert in everything and everyone, because I'm not. Nobody is. And that's okay. So that's something that I've really had to grow on this year, and really be okay with knowing that sometimes shoulders are going to rub, and they're not going to rub in a way that is positive, and that as long as I know that I handled the situation positively, I did everything that I could within my realm, at the end of the day I can be like, okay, well, I tried, it didn't work out, and that's okay. But with that situation, I also was very thankful that I had went through from my previous experience with working with families and students, knowing that I wanted to have these plans in place. Having those plans in place and being able to follow them, I think really helped me handle it in a professional way. And I think it really safeguarded me against retaliation for discrimination and things like that, because I have it outlined, like, these behaviors I don't accept. If these behaviors happen, I'm going to do XYZ. If XYZ doesn't work, it falls on you as the parent to like help do stuff. And if the stuff doesn't work, then it is call for dismissal. And that really safeguarded me. I also think that being consistent is really important. So again, this is personal experience. Having a parent weekly tell me, okay, I'll pay you next week, I'll pay you in 2 weeks, and letting that go is not good. Don't do that. It's not good. If I can understand if a certain situation happens like once maybe in a year, or maybe even twice in a year, being accommodating. Don't do it consistently. If you have a late fee, if they don't pay after so many days, tuition's late, and you have a late fee, stick to that late fee. If the late fee time passes and you're like, okay, after such and such amount of time, if it still hasn't been paid, then they're out of the school, stick to it. Because one, you can fill that spot and make tuition, right? Because this is our jobs. Like, this is what, nobody else would go to work and work hours and not be paid. So you need to stick to it, because unfortunately there are people out there that will take advantage of you. It sucks. I know for me, I have a very soft heart and I want to do the right thing. I want to help people because I understand what it's like to be in situations that are crappy. And that's okay. You can use your best discernment in that, but after a certain point, be consistent and have it outlined in your parent handbook, so you just know, I'm going to stick to this. This is something I already decided, and it helps take some of that pressure off. I think word of mouth is also the best marketing. So, if this is your first year, make sure that those parents, if they're happy, hopefully they're all happy. You'll know if they're not. Make sure that they're like telling their friends. Because chances are, if they're happy, it's a good fit, and you're meeting the needs that family has, and meeting the expectations that they have, and chances are that their friends are going to have similar worldviews, and that they're going to also be a really good fit. So word of mouth is the best advertising that you can do. I also put up flyers in my local area. I do some advertising on Facebook, but I really don't think it's probably worth it, to be honest, especially not the paid advertising. So that's just kind of my thoughts on advertising, I guess. Again, play to your strengths. So think about how your program is going to be set apart from other people's programs. So my program is the only program in this area as of right now that does a nature-based immersion with formal learning. So, and my background was perfect for that. I come from a formal learning environment, and I've taught environmental education as well. So it was kind of like a little niche that I could play on, and it sets my school apart from other schools. And then my last tip is just charge what you need to operate. So this one's hard because I feel like I probably am not doing this, to be honest. I want to be able to meet families where they are. So I'm charging what I'm charging. Okay, I guess I'll just be honest. I charge $175 a week, which comes out to $35 a day, which comes out to like less than $5 an hour. So it's not a lot, but I do know that it's enough to cover my expenses. I also make Amazon wish lists that amazing people help me with, and that helps a lot. That helps me keep my tuition low, because if I didn't get little help like that with buying like copier paper and stuff like that, I would have to charge more. So you need to sit down and figure out, one, what you need to be paid. Like what do you need on a month-to-month basis for your family to survive? So do that first, and then think about, okay, well, how much do you think I'm going to spend in materials? And I still haven't figured that out, because it changes like month to month. Like sometimes we'll go through like $100 worth of like ink in a month, and sometimes we'll only go through like $40 of ink a month. Like, it just changes so drastically depending on like what kind of projects and stuff we're doing. But I will say, like, if that's something that like you underestimated for and you find yourself spending more on materials, you can find ways to do project-based learning without having to spend a lot of money. So you can, that area I feel like you can be a little bit more creative in, and just use some of the materials that you already have, until you get more of a handle on that. But I would say charge what you need. So what I did is I kind of looked at, so this is part of my business plan, is part of your business plan is looking at your competition and looking at their rates. At the time when I started my school, I decided that I was going to be less than all of the other options, because I was just getting started. I didn't really have the reputation yet and things like that. And I haven't really changed it. I raised it by like $25 a week 2 years ago, which has not held up to the inflation raises the last couple years. So I have been thinking about how I'm going to accommodate for that, because like this year in particular, especially since I dismissed a family, I've been barely above breaking even. So it has not been the best sustainable year for me, but I also knew that going into some of the decisions I made, like dismissing the family mid-year and things like that. So that was something that I was aware of up front and things like that. So yeah, charge what you're worth. And like, if you're going to want to do some pretty cool lesson plans or projects and things like that, know what those costs are going to be and include them in your tuition charge. So like for me, we do a lot of project-based learning, which means that we have to have magnifying glasses and stereoscopes and binoculars, and like the Spanish thing, I use an app on my phone because I'm not fluent in Spanish. So those things I add up, like what my plans are, what I'm going to use, and then I add that to my tuition costs as my materials and supplies, to make sure that I'm still making a profit at the end of the day. I hope that makes sense. So anyway, if you have more questions, just comment below, or I'll make a part 2 video. So that's a lot. There's so much to think about, and this video is already way longer than I wanted it to be, but I wanted to give you a few extra resources to get started. So the National Microschooling Center, amazing. I love them. I am going to become a member this year. I just found out about them at the last conference that I was at, which was just earlier this year. I love them. I'm going to become a member. They're a wealth of knowledge, great resource for getting started and even after you get started. Like, I had a situation come up that I was concerned about. I talked to somebody with the National Microschooling Center, and like, they were asking their attorney all these different questions, and they were like on it with getting back with me. They're just amazing people. So check them out. There is My School Options, which is the ESA program that I was talking about. If that's something that you're interested in, you can check that out as well. There's also the VILA Education Fund. They do scholarships and stuff like, or grants for like starting a micro school. There's also this amazing Facebook group that I also found out at the conference that I was at. It's called Indiana Microschools Learning Pods and Co-ops. It's on Facebook. They meet virtually once a month. I haven't been able to do that yet because my schedule's just been so crazy, but I want to. I love just reading their posts and just some of the conversations they're having. They're great. Jill Haskins is our local person who is kind of like a resource in Indiana, or this part of Indiana, and she's amazing. Like, she knows a lot. She gets on there and answers almost every question anybody has, and if she can't answer it, she finds resources for you. So it's a really great way to just build community, because I will say one of the hardest things about having a micro school is just you don't have a lot of extra team members. You're like the teacher, the administrator, the secretary, you're everything. And that can just be really hard sometimes. So just having like a good support of other people that are in the field, that know what you're kind of up against and that can help you out, just brings a great sense of community that I know I need anyway. So I hope this was helpful. I know this was a lot more like informal compared to my other videos. This is probably the format I'm going to be sticking with. I want to help. I want to see this movement grow, but I also need to focus on the work that I'm doing. Whew. Sorry, wasp. And I just think that I can give you all this great information without having to be like super techie and spending hours and hours and hours editing my videos. So I hope that you can appreciate this. And again, if you have questions, comments, concerns, anything, comment below. If I can't answer them on a quick chat, maybe I'll do a part 2 video. Again, you can follow me on my Wild Learners channel. You can message me there too. I'd love to help you out. I want to help see more of these micro schools pop up, meet more of the needs of our families in this area. So anyway, best of luck to you, and I will see you in our next video.